I'm Karen Foley, and in this evening's session we're going to take a look broadly at two key areas. We're going to be looking at sport and fitness and also postgraduate study. However, the Student Hub Live is open to everybody. It's an online interactive platform from the Open University. You can chat to other students, you can ask questions to our participants in the studio, and we will do our best to welcome you to the community and cover everything that you need to know as a new student. Now, bringing your questions into the studio tonight is HJ, who is on our hot desk. Hello, HJ. How's everyone at home?
Well, we're all ready. It seems we are a bit cold because we've got wood burners on and we're getting the food in. So, yes, we're all prepared. Notebooks at the ready as well. Although it's not absolutely necessary. Someone was vigorously taking notes earlier, which I commend you, but I just tend to save some interesting stuff every so often. But we've got lots of people just coming in. So if you haven't been in the chat before, just know anything goes. Any thoughts, comments or questions for our guests, we want to hear it. And it's my job to put it to the studio if there is anything you want me to ask.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. OK, so this evening, what we're going to do is firstly take a look at Beyond the Trivial. What does studying sport reveal? Now, I'm joined in this session by Jess Pinchbeck, Alex Twitchen and Ben Oakley. Ben, congratulations. You have recently been made Professor of Sport.
Yeah, last week. It was a great surprise. Well, it wasn't a surprise, but it was fantastic. It's a real big day. Yeah.
No, it's very exciting. And what we're going to talk about today is about how studying sport can reveal things about your own body, coaching and instructional practices, group behaviour and also sport in wider society. Now, we challenged you to find some images that you could bring in. We can see those here in this lovely screen down by Alex. So we've got 9 images and we're going to talk about how those relate to sport and fitness.
Yeah, we thought that would stimulate some discussion amongst us, yeah.
Because you're a very varied bunch. I'd just like to introduce you all first. Jess, you have an expertise in children's sports and you're avoiding your netball team tonight, I hear.
I'm missing a training session tonight, so hopefully I've left them in good hands, yeah.
And you're also in charge of the introductory module and you're a school governor. Alex, you've worked in football, Football Association as trainer of coaches, and alongside that you've been a university lecturer for 24 years.
That's right.
So an awful lot of experience. And Ben, you were an Olympic coach for windsurfing before you transitioned into teaching.
Yep.
So we've got a wide range of things and an eclectic mix of images. Yeah. So let's take a look at our first one. We've got an image of Spectators here, image number 1. Why have you chosen this image, Ben?
Well, this is a bit like Room 101, isn't it?
It is. We're going to plough through them.
No, I'm not going to put any in the bin, though. But I've chosen this one because I saw an image of... this is actually a football match, but I saw an image of spectators like this, and then something happened in the game, something disastrous. And when something happens, do you know what people do?
There's a reaction.
There's a reaction, but everyone does the same thing.
Collective.
It's a collective thing, and they all go like this, like that, and they put their heads in their hands. And for me, what this demonstrates is that sport, it really evokes some deep-seated emotions, and no one's taught everyone to do that. But it's, sport brings out some strong emotions, both happiness, sadness, frustration typically. And that's partly why I think studying it is worthwhile and interesting. And also with a match like that, you've got this sort of the community, the collective sense of belonging. I think that's very interesting as well. So we each, we all do different sports. Alex, I think you're going to a football match tomorrow night.
I am indeed. I'm going to go and watch Spurs versus Wolves at MK Dons. Rather bizarre that Spurs are playing in Milton Keynes.
Oh, well, that's a whole story behind that. But that's so I've put that up there because I think sport's interesting because it evokes strong emotions and lots of people follow it, and it's about sort of a sense of belonging. But I wonder if anyone in my colleagues got anything else to say about that one.
I think it's also a shared experience.
Yeah.
So I took my daughter for the first time last year to the Copper Box to go and watch her first ever England netball match. And that was a real shared family experience, and watching her reactions and the pleasure that I got as a parent from watching her enjoying the moment and being involved in the sport as well.
Yeah, and I think it's part of your self-identity as well, isn't it? How you identify with sports teams and why you choose to follow certain teams and what's part of your own family history, and sometimes it can be generational. People can follow the same team over many generations of the same family.
I've got one more thing to add about emotions. So sometimes you're watching, for instance, the World Cup this summer. I was sat there 5 minutes beforehand. I thought I was really nervous. You know, it evokes, it's vicarious experience, isn't it? You feel not what the players are going through, but you know, even when you're watching, you feel a hell of a lot of emotion and anxiety and joy and all that. But that's why I chose it.
Well, I want to ask you a question then, Ben, because you two are talking very much about team sports, and that makes sense. You've got belonging as a team and belonging as a crowd. In individual sport, though, that sense of belonging still is there, isn't it? It's belonging to something.
Well, no, it's to do with identity, particularly a sport like windsurfing, skateboarding, surfing, or kite surfing. They've all got a bit of a sort of beach image, and there's an identity connected with that. I used to have long curly hair, and I used to think, you know, I used to wear coal necklaces and think it was cool.
We need a photograph of that, Ben.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you choose that?
Next time I will. But so it's to do with identity. You're defining, especially when you're in your teens and your 20s, you're defining who you are. I'm a sports person. I belong to this tribe, or sports. My body is. I express myself through my body and stuff like that. But even when you have individual sports coming together as a squad, you go to an Olympic Games as a team. I walked out in the Olympic Stadium behind the British flag. I never thought I'd ever do that, and there I was. It was incredible. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, well, let's go on to the next image because we've got lots more to get through. So our second image that we've got is a robot. Alex, you chose this image.
Yeah, I thought this kind of represented the body as a machine, and so part and parcel of sport is performing, and hopefully we can perform at our best. And in order to perform at our best, we really need our body to kind of function in the most efficient and effective way. It's kind of almost like a machine, like a robot analogy. And it's the way that all of the systems in our body kind of interact with one another in order to kind of produce that performance. So it's the blood carrying the oxygen to the muscles, and it's the food that we eat and how that's helping to fuel the performance as well. So we quite often talk about the body as a machine, and it has that kind of machine-like connotation in terms of the way we want it to function and operate and be smooth and efficient and effective, and just kind of to perform at the best level that we can.
So almost at the other end of this whole idea of belonging, isn't it?
Well, I think the body as a machine partly links into training methods and strength and conditioning. We do that quite a lot on the course. And I remember you and I worked on a physiology topic together. Do you remember it? And we had to try and break it down and make it. And I kept on asking, you would say something. I said, so what? What does that mean for us? So I think it's interesting. I've got one more thing to say, but I'll let anyone else chip in if you want to.
I think machines also break down.
Exactly.
So looking at the not only the physical repairing of the body, but obviously the psychological repairing as well. So psychology of injury is something that we cover within our modules as well, and lots of our students really enjoy studying that.
Yeah, and that image actually has got a very big head on it. I don't know if you remember it, but it has got a huge head. And we do look at psychology a lot. Because whilst the body might be a machine, there's a whole lot going up here, the computer up here, if you think it's a computer, which is debatable. And understanding how your head influences all that is important.
No, absolutely. And a lot of people, I think, are very drawn to coaching because of the sports psychology and that whole idea behind it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Excellent. Right, let's take a look at our third image, which is one of yours, Jess.
This is one of mine, and I've selected this for various reasons. So one of my key interests is researching family influences in sport and physical activity. So family influences how people interact with sport and physical activity on various levels, and the first really is socialisation into sport and physical activity. So parents often dictate whether children participate in activities. If parents really value sport and value physical activity, they'll encourage their children to do that as well. So you often find that sporty and active children have sporty and active parents through parents creating those opportunities, but also parents acting as role models as well. And secondly, once children start participating, the family really influence how much a child enjoys it. So they really set the context. When your child comes home from playing sport, what do you ask them? Did you win? Or do you ask them, did you enjoy it? And really how the parent responds to their child playing sport impacts the child's enjoyment and motivation.
I think we pick that up in level 2 mostly, don't we?
We do, and level 3. So that's one of my study topics that I've written about, family involvement in sport and how we create that supportive environment for children and encourage them to participate.
I think we also talk about the different growth rates of children maturing at different rates, and the something called the relative age effect if you're born in September or June or May, and how that has an impact. That's, again, it's not studied in the first year, but I think it's almost certainly year 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything, Alex?
No, I just concur with Jess. I think the family is a really important environment for helping children to learn good, healthy, positive attitudes to sport, physical activity and exercise, and probably alongside the school environment as well.
Yeah.
So you bring the two together, and that really begins to form their long-term views about sport and their engagement and what have you. And I think the pressure on parents now can be really quite immense. After school clubs and getting children involved in sport, and it's just part and parcel of what we do as parents.
I think it's key as well in terms of, Alex touched upon it there, is that they talk about creating a habit of lifelong participation. And studies just show that if children are more active as they're growing up, particularly if they're involved in clubs outside of school, that they'll develop a habit of physical activity in sport, and that will carry through into adulthood as well, which is really important.
Just thinking about my own school gate and some of the children I see, my own daughter, I sort of take begrudgingly along to the odd little park run, and she really, really doesn't like it, and I wish that she would, but she doesn't. And some children I see at the school gate and their parents don't do any activity, and they're the ones who are always doing things. So it's really important that there is this natural sort of correlation, I guess, between how much children enjoy sport and how they perceive it. But it doesn't always have to work that way, does it?
It doesn't, but those parents that have maybe paid for their child to participate in a club are actively encouraging it. So even if the adults don't participate in sport themselves, even by spectating, and that comes back to Ben's point earlier, by creating opportunities and getting them interested, and even by driving them to and from a club, that's parental support. So it's not only about doing it as a family, it's about the logistical support, monetary support that it takes for children to be involved.
And we're going to be pursuing quite a few of these ideas at our conference next March, which is entitled My Child, the Athlete. So that's looking at the relationship between parents, coaches, children, in terms of how we help them to develop and progress in sport.
And there's a whole area of parents that go into coaching, and the issues that causes in terms of coaching your own children and crossing the line and things like that, which we'll explore at the conference as well.
A lot of your students are actively involved in things, and some may be doing coaching, some may be athletes, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about that boundary in terms of how students might experience that when they're starting to learn and study and think, oh, I'll try this out on my child, or or on myself, etc., or on my husband? What advice do you give students in terms of managing those boundaries?
I think as a parent myself, it's about listening to your children, and it's about having that dialogue, and if they're not enjoying something, getting to the bottom of it. Why don't they enjoy it? If it's an individual sport, do they feel too pressured? So it's just about talking to them, and really it's about trying as many different sports as you can, and then something will click and they'll find one that they're really passionate about. So I think it's not pushing too hard, it's kind of a positive push. So you want them to experience lots of different things, and sometimes they might not want to go, but gentle encouragement, and there's that fine line between what's a gentle positive push and what's forcing them to stick with something that they don't like.
So based on the assumption that everyone will like us sports, it's just which one, and you must keep trying.
There's one out there, I do believe that there's an activity or something out there for everybody. It's just a case of trying.
Well, there's quite a lot of research that shows the more sports you try, the greater chance there is that you'll bump into the one that you're good at.
Well, yes.
That's what we call the sampling stage.
Yeah.
Where you sample lots of different activities.
Yeah.
So we do touch the idea of talent development and stuff like that in level 3, and there's lots of research around that area. It's a fascinating area, and is it nature or nurture? Is it how many sports you try? I mean, how many people bump into rowing or sailing? You have to live in the right place for that. So, and there's research about the size of the towns that people come from. There's all sorts of interesting variables.
And also we should maybe talk about the relationship between early specialisation and late specialisation. At what point should a child begin to specialise in a particular sport?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of evidence to say that children shouldn't specialise too early, that they should specialise as late as possible and keep playing a variety of sports certainly throughout their teenage years and so forth.
Yeah.
I have a picture that might cover that later, Alex.
Well, let's take a quick trip to the hot desk and see what everyone at home is talking about. HJ.
Well, we've got lots of people logging in throughout the session, so and some new people as well. So Charlotte's really excited to start studying, and we're very interested in this idea of emotion behind sport. So in South Wales, we're very emotional about Swansea not doing so well at the moment, but we're also happy about the Tour de France as well. So that's made it all okay. And we're talking about asking our children, did you enjoy it? Well, John was brought up in Glasgow, so it's always drummed into him to win. So it's always, did you win with him? But we've got competitive cake lifting. So we're not sure if that's a sport we're going to embrace or not at Student Hub Live, but maybe we'll see what you're going to say about that later.
Well, yes, because we've got some other people from the sport and fitness team coming to talk about studying like an athlete, and we've got a whole massive amount of food out there that we're going to be bringing in and asking them.
That.
Yeah, it looks great. I can't wait to tuck into that. Well, let's get on with our pictures because I want to find out what your next one is. But before we do that, Jess, Ben, your next picture is picture number 4.
So this one is a picture of a penalty, and this is representing pressure in sport. Now we all have, we're slightly pressured here in a studio environment. Luckily we've been here before, but we all face pressure through our lives, whether it be, the one that we've all relate to is a driving test perhaps, or speaking in public. And so I think it's worth studying sport because you can learn a lot about how you respond to pressure and how, what strategies you can use in terms of talking to yourself, in terms of imagining images and building
Are you talking about
goals.
physical and psychological, or one or the other?
Well, talking mainly about psychological pressure there, because if you take enough penalties, you know how to kick the ball, and as we saw this summer. So I chose that picture because pressure and anxiety and stress is something that you're investigating at the moment.
Definitely, and there is definitely a physical component as well. So sitting here, sweaty palms, your heartbeat going, your blood's pumping fast around your body. It's that fight or flight response really, and that's what somebody taking a penalty, will incur with their body. But it's about having those coping mechanisms to be able to deal with that. And in sports psychology, that's what a sports psychologist will work with an athlete on. Is anxiety is not always a negative thing. It can be positive, and it's taking those signs and being able to control them to perform at your optimum level.
I often find if I'm not nervous for something, there's something wrong. I need to be slightly on edge.
No, the adrenaline is good. It keeps us on our toes, doesn't it? Alex, did you want to add to the picture?
Yeah, for me, as a coach, this is about preparation. And in football, we talk about pre-shot routines. So can you actually come up with a routine that you follow irrespective of the pressure? Because that's a part of the coping mechanism. So the England team this past World Cup, they prepared to take penalties more than any other England team had done in the past, right to the point when the player left the centre circle and walked up and picked the ball up and put it down the spot. All of that was rehearsed and prepared before the games. And that was part of the coping mechanism for them.
Yeah, but so often we'll practice something in real isolation, and as you say, it's that getting to the point that then you're because a lot of these footballers must be able to kick a ball if they sit there and practice, time and time again. But it's the nerves, I guess, that's the effect, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's having that kind of that preparation, that pre-shot routine, knowing what you're going to do, where you're going to put the ball, how you're going to approach it, and just trying to sort of focus on that rather than the crowd and the environment and the tension and the pressure and so forth.
So that's similar, isn't it, to Owen Farrell and Dan Bigger,
Exactly.
the kickers in rugby, all have their pre-kick routines, don't they? There's actually a montage on YouTube of all the different routines, and it's done to music. It's actually quite entertaining.
And I have my own pre-shot routine in golf.
Do you? We'll get a demonstration later.
Maybe.
I've got a hockey stick.
I had a real pressure moment on Friday. I had to stand up in front of about 2,000 or 3,000 people and give a little speech for an honorary degree to Kath Granger, the Olympic rower. It was really nerve-wracking, and the bottom part of my body was a bit shaky, but luckily the voice stayed okay. Luckily I've done it before, so I said I could rehearse it a bit. But we all face little moments where we need to control our emotions, and that's one of them.
And I guess approaching it from that methodical point must have an application to all students, because we can all feel anxiety in an exam, or going to a tutorial, or doing something unfamiliar.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be in terms of what you can take from sports psychology to students doing something that may be a bit anxiety provoking?
You put me on the spot now.
I know.
Well, there's things like what the things that you say to yourself. Self-talk, it's called. So the types of things that you say to yourself, you can come up with special cue words that are important to you, what you visualise beforehand, and how you practice that, and you try and practice under a bit of pressure if you can. I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Yeah, relaxation techniques. So working on your breathing, controlling your breathing, progressive muscular relaxation, so involves sort of tensing and relaxing your muscles and working that through your body, so you begin to calm down.
Yeah. And do you do any positive visualisation, imagining yourself succeeding?
Yeah, definitely, particularly within sport, and imagery is a really powerful tool, but it's not something that you can just get straight away, so it does take quite a lot of practice to be able to use imagery successfully.
I'm remembering what I was thinking about now on Friday.
Yeah.
As I was going up to this lectern, this sea of faces, I remembered something someone said to me. It said, "Ben, less shouty, more talky." So I have a tendency, as you can see here, to get a bit overexcited, and it's just meant to be just talking to the audience. The fact there's lots of people out there, the microphone will pick it up, and I'm trying to be a bit quieter now to illustrate the point.
Yeah.
More talking.
And speaking of graduation, I know that students are often very motivated by imagining their graduation when the going gets tough, and seeing the end result of that degree. Let's move on to the next picture, which is one of yours, Jess.
Oh, well, that's a lovely link, because I've actually picked this because of motivation. So somebody running a marathon, what motivates them? And linking with some research that I'm doing at the moment, looking at women playing club level sport, what motivates them to turn out every Sunday morning, the pouring rain, to play netball. And often it's through initial socialisation, so they want to make friends, they want time away from home, they want their time. And there's lots of schemes going on at the moment to try and get more women playing sport and motivated about sport. And Back to Netball is one of those. When you look at it, women often start because they want to make friends or do something different. But then once they get hooked, their motivations really change, and they want to become better, and they want to play at a better standard. And so it's just looking at how different people have different motives for taking part. So our students here, they'll all have different motives for enrolling on a degree or a module, and how these evolve and take shape as we progress on a journey.
I think, well, I know that motivation is right throughout the degree course. There's stuff at level 1, level 2 and level 3, because you can look at it through many different lenses or perspectives. And, not just what motivates us individually, but what motivates our colleagues at work. If we start working with groups and perhaps leading groups, what motivates other people, and that's
and it's the difference between kind of intrinsic and extrinsic motivations, isn't it? Are you intrinsically motivated to achieve for yourself, or are you motivated because you're trying to achieve a trophy or a medal or a PB, or so what are the sources of that motivation?
At level 3, looking at that picture there, at level 3 we have I've written something about the psychology and motivation when you have extreme endurance pain, when you're doing a triathlon like maybe some of us are. I'm looking at you, Karen.
Yeah, I know. Your show, come on.
But so how you cope with that discomfort when you're really pushing to the limit, and how much you can stay at that high level. So it's a fascinating topic.
It comes back as well when you were asking me about parents and their children engaging in sport. If they're engaged because they really enjoy it, that's a very intrinsic motivation. If they're engaged just because they want to please a parent, that's very extrinsically motivated, and therefore they might not stay in that sport, they might end up dropping out. So again, it's good to encourage that internal and intrinsic motivation.
No, absolutely. And for our students as well, who've got 6 years often of part-time study, if they're doing it part-time, it is an endurance race, and the going does get tough.
Tell me about it. I'm currently studying my PhD at the moment, so that's quite a long journey, and each year I have to set myself goals and small targets, and
eat lots of jelly babies.
And it's that sense of achievement. So when you reach that milestone, setting yourself a new target and then moving on. So that's what I'd advise our students to do: bite-sized chunks, and you'll get there in the end.
Small goals to the big one.
Yeah.
Right, Ben, I'm intrigued by your next picture, which is a safety valve.
Ah, right, this one. Well, you wouldn't know it's a safety valve by looking at it, but It is. I'm told it's a steam engine.
Yeah, I
And
googled it.
so this is a question, and Alex and I had an interesting discussion about this. There's someone called George Orwell, who's an author, who wrote 1984, and he said, sport is like war minus the shouting. And he was suggesting that in sport, it helps let off steam and aggression between people and perhaps between countries. So as a sort of a thought experiment, what would happen now if we were to play a football match that counted for something against Russia? Would that inflame tensions, or would it sort of help dissipate them? We don't cover this as a huge topic in the course, but it's just an interesting topic about does it create tension or more aggression, or does it release tension? So we had an interesting debate, didn't we?
Yeah, because my view is that sport is a kind of a controlled decontrolling of emotions.
Yeah.
So although some people argue that taking part in sport allows you to release stress and release pressure and so forth, sport can also generate tension. It can generate pressure, and you can put pressure on yourself. So it's about that kind of tension balance. It's a kind of a controlled way of releasing tension. You know, it can build and sustain pressure and tension, but it can also release it as well. So I don't see it just purely as a safety valve, letting off steam.
Yeah.
Sport can create steam.
Yeah, it does.
But it's the
certainly.
controlled way you get that kind of balance between the two.
And it's not just the players; it's the people watching.
People watching it,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're sort of,
That's right.
for me, they're venting in a way.
Yeah.
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 Well, our audience at home are quite daredevils, actually. So I think it depends what sport. HJ, what sort of sports are people trying?
That's it. Well, we seem to be trying a bit of everything. I knew John's doing jiu-jitsu, and David took up mountain biking 3 years ago, and he's been tempted by a few triathlons, so we'll see how he goes with that. Paul's just started paragliding as well, so
Wow.
that sounds like something that's a bit different. Candice took up water skiing as well, so we seem to be doing everything here. I bet we could put together our own Open University Olympic team. I know, there we go, Hannah's in the mountain biking as well, travels all over the world and takes her bike with her, so absolutely
Sounds like
fantastic.
she's an international competitor to you.
And Charlotte reminds us that dancing is exercise too, which I quite agree with,
Yes,
Charlotte.
definitely.
Absolutely. It can be very effective. Right, we've got 3 more pictures and not much time. Let's go to the next one, which is one of yours, Alex.
Right, yeah, no. For me, this is about a representation of how people learn. And from my background, I'm a tutor and a mentor for the Football Association. So quite a lot of my work is helping coaches to become better. And how do we help them to become better coaches? How do they learn to become better coaches? And I don't think we just want to fill them with lots of information, you know, as though they're empty vessels that we fill up with knowledge and understanding. But it's trying to help them to become better and help them to learn by drawing on their experiences and getting them to reflect on their experiences and kind of prompting them and nudging them to think about what they're doing and their practice and their behaviours, and using all the knowledge that they've got and the experiences that they've got to try and, you know, use that to help them, as I say, reflect back on what they're doing and change their behaviours. So for me, as a lecturer, as a teacher, we're not just trying to give people stuff. We're not just trying to fill them up with more knowledge. We're trying to really, as I say, take the knowledge that they've got, the experiences that they've had, and get them to reflect on those experiences. And maybe with our guidance, with our prompting, we can get them to sort of see those experiences in a slightly different way. And from that, they'll learn and progress. So,
I mean, we come back to how do people learn, this question. We visit that a few times in the course. And a few people learning new sports. And I've just learned cross-country skiing, actually.
Oh, wow.
And you learn that not by reading a book or looking at a website. You learn it mainly by talking to other people, in fact. It's a social process. And they don't have to be instructors. You're just chatting away to people who know a tiny bit more than you, and you gradually incrementally learn. So that's why I think that's an interesting picture. So learning isn't like that, is what we're saying. It's not about filling a bucket up.
no.
Let's move on to the next picture, which is one of gymnastics. Alex, I think this is another one of
so
yours.
this is like coach-athlete relationships and the real importance of the relationship between the coach and the athlete. And for me, as coaches, I think our most important role is that we coach the person in front of us, and we should be able to simultaneously develop the person as well as develop the performer. So there's a difference between the person and the performer. And I think perhaps one thing that coaches do is they focus too much on the performance and not about the person. So it's kind of recalibrating the way we think about the relationship between the coach and the athlete. And that it's not all about the performance, but it's helping the person to develop as a better individual.
So is it more of a holistic view of the person and the psychology?
Yeah. So whether we're working with children or whether we're working with adults, we want to help them to grow as people as well as grow as performers. And I think good coaches, skilled coaches, expert coaches do that simultaneously. They can achieve both those goals.
And on our level 1 module, the second module, which is called E119, we spend 4 or 5 weeks talking about communication and working relationships in sport. You know, it's a really important topic that employers all say, you know, what do you want someone to have when they come to you? Well, they need to be good at communicating and interpersonal skills. Yet, you know, it's not many places teach this, so we think it's really important.
Excellent. Let's take a look at our last picture, which let's guess who this was from. It's from Jess.
Yeah, this was my picture, and we have covered quite a lot, but it's a subject close to my heart, which is coaching children in sport, and particularly with having children of my own and also coaching children myself, I witness a lot of coaching sessions, and sometimes my toes curl when I watch coaches shout at children from the sideline, and it's all about winning, and the children don't particularly seem to be enjoying themselves that much, or children are crying because they're being taken off. And so for me, this is just a real passion about engaging children in sport, the whole participation versus performance, that with children it should be about participation. It's about creating opportunity for every child to be successful, and just making sure that enjoyment and fun are key to help engage the children and just keep them within the sport or within physical activity generally.
We've covered so much here, and I just want to end by asking about, you know, there's clearly a lot of relevance here about sport, but in addition to this, in addition to studying sport, what are students going to get out of studying sport and fitness at the Open University?
Well, in addition, they're going to learn a whole lot of skills about searching information, deciding what information is valid, being able to write a lot more coherently. So it's the sort of study skills that you learn. You don't realise you're learning it. When I remember being at college, and you come out and suddenly you can write something pretty well, and you can construct a fairly good argument. So it's those skills, I think, that for me are one of the benefits. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think what we do, and I'm blowing our own trumpet here, what we do quite well in sport is that balance between academic skills and also general employability skills. So what employers are looking for and what's really important when you go out into the workplace and you're looking for jobs. So in terms of communication, motivation, collaboration, being able to work with people, obviously via forums, some of our students do presentations. So it's about building those all-round skills and developing that confidence as well, confidence in yourself and your ability.
Not to mention time management also.
Exactly.
And meeting deadlines, which is very important. Final question for each of you, one sentence about what advice you would give to new students who are starting out. Alex.
It's going to be a challenge, but persevere, endurance, and stay with it.
Jess?
Mine would be utilise your tutor. Our tutors are so experienced and so full of knowledge. Just make sure you make use of them.
And my advice would be, on your fridge, put the dates of the assessment dates on your fridge, so, to remind you, and put them in your planner as well. And if possible, sign up for your tutor group forum, which means you get automatic responses when someone's posted something.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for
Great.
a really enjoyable session.
Good.
And I hope that you've all enjoyed it at home. HJ, have they all enjoyed it at home?
Absolutely. We're still sharing all the different fantastic sports we've been doing. And Caroline Heaney from the sports team as well has been joining us in the chat. And I know we're hearing from her later. So I know we're all geared up, and the next session is definitely going to be relevant to what we're doing as well.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take a short break while we get all the food in, and I mean a lot of food. So we're going to show you a couple of videos. Firstly, we're going to show you about some of the sport box, the badged open courses, and then we're going to give you another student story, which is from Ruth Hallett. Then I will be back with Ben, Simon and Simon to talk about studying like a world-class athlete. See you in a few minutes.